The following video is not suited for children. Ugh, bloody hell, Christmas came and went a bit quick. Well, a new year and... Oh, Christ. Well, I think I need another holiday already. Somewhere outside of England, somewhere not as full of self-loathing and, as much as I love them, away from trains. Well, I could go to Amsterdam and go on an absolute bender, but that's in the Netherlands, which is part of the EU, and I don't think our relationship with them are quite as spiffing as they used to be. What about somewhere hot? I need a tan. I got relations in Australia. Sod it, let's have a holiday there. I mean, yeah, there are big ass spiders and poisonous snakes, but what's the worst that could... Ah, well, I was really looking forward to a trip down under, but I guess I can't have that either. I mean, my passport is out of date anyway, but I still want to go to Australia, damn it! Well, I guess I could just watch a movie set in Australia instead. Let's see, no... don't want to think about the future yet. Too much time in America. Oh, bloody hell. Well, it's in the title of the video, so let's just get this over with. Kangaroo Jack is one of those films that I just can't seem to get away from. As a kid, it always seemed to be playing on at least one TV channel on the weekend, and if it wasn't on my TV, it was on someone else's while I was at their house. And it's not just friends, almost everyone I know has seen this film. No joke. It just seems to keep popping up everywhere I go, in the minds and on the TVs of everyone I meet. I would say it's a coincidence that it's following me, but deep down, I know that just like the MI6, China and Google, it probably knows more about me than I know about myself. So how did it become this semi-sentient mess intent on stalking me? Well, it started out life as a screenplay by Steve Bing and Scott Rosenberg, and was directed by David McNally, who had previously directed Coyote Ugly, which sits at 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. The original story was a dark mafia comedy set in Australia. After a test screening of the first cut of the film, people didn't seem to enjoy it, but did find mild amusement in one scene that had a kangaroo in it, with the studio likely panicking that the film would be a loss in profit. Some extra scenes were shot, a CGI kangaroo was rendered, and it was re-edited to be one of those funny talking animal films for the whole family that seemed to pop up all over the place during the early 2000s. So as a result, we got this weird mess that's really immature in parts, yet too adult for kids. But at the same time, it's both loved and loathed in equal regard. It's got 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, yet nearly a 4.5 out of 5 from Amazon Prime viewers, and Google says 78% of people like the film. It exists in this weird purgatory state where it's not quite bad enough to be unwatchable, yet endearing enough to keep me watching on. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe there's a deeper meaning to it, something much more intelligent than just a talking kangaroo, and I'll make it my job today to find that meaning and rid of this film from following me ever again. We open in Australia with some narration from... wait, we're in America now. Anyway, we get some quick backstory on the cast and set up our two lead characters meeting, being named Charlie, who grows up to be the white guy that's always whining, and Lewis, who grows up to be the generic funny black guy who was clearly written by a white guy. While at the beach one day as kids, some asshole kid throws a rugby ball into the sea and young Charlie goes after it. Of course he starts to drown and young Lewis runs in to save him instead of, I don't know, a responsible adult or a lifeguard on this densely packed beach. With that, the two become friends. Cut 2 years later, and Charlie Boy is running his own hair salon funded by his stepfather, who is the head of the local mafia. Lewis steps in and asks Charlie a favour to help him unload some TVs. Charlie wants to say no, knowing that they're likely stolen, but Lewis uses the excuse that he saved Charlie's life to twist his arm. As they're driving along, whiny white boy starts to whine about how hard it is to have your stepfather be head of the local mob. As he's whining, the police call for them to pull over because the van is stolen. This gives way to a small chase scene that's alright. It's mostly just shots of cars going vroom and occasionally bump into each other. We also get this moment where there's a police blockade, but it gets taken out by this random truck full of fish flipping over. Like, literally, it just flips over. I have gone over this moment like 7 times, and I genuinely cannot think of an in-universe explanation for why it flips over. Eventually, they both end up at a warehouse where they can unload the TVs, but unfortunately for Charlie Boy here, it turns out that it belongs to his stepdad. As expected, the police show up and everyone panics. Charlie and Lewis employ the secret Joestar technique, jump down a chute, and manage to get away. Later, they are summoned to Mob Daddy Christopher Walken's house, who berates Charlie for costing him a lot of money. We also get to see the asshole kid from the beach is now working for Mob Daddy Walken as well. Walken tells Charlie he's willing to forgive him if he does one simple job for him: take a brown envelope to a man in Australia. With no real choice, Charlie and Lewis both accept and fly out to the land down under. On the way there, they eat some sweets that are loosely just sitting in Lewis's pocket and discover that the envelope contains $50,000. They discuss the subject in the airplane toilet and we get this awful series of poop jokes. And no, I'm not putting them in a review. So they arrive in Australia and jump into a jeep heading towards the place they need to drop the money off. Along the way, Chazzy starts moaning about the fact he's single and that he'll never find the perfect woman. If there was a reverse version of the Bechdel test for men talking about women, this film would fail hard. Eventually, they start singing Land Down Under for a moment until they hit a kangaroo. A stark metaphor for both this film and the meaning of the song they were singing. And now, because I think Lewis has suddenly developed borderline psychopathic tendencies, they call it Jackie Legs because it reminds them of someone or something like that, and they take some pictures with it, even going as far as to dress it in Lewis's lucky jacket. As expected, the kangaroo isn't actually dead and wakes up, kicking Chazza and hopping away. And because he's an idiot, Lewis accidentally left the mob money in the jacket pocket, so the pair now need to chase after the kangaroo. They drive around for a few minutes, crashing into some termite mounds and pulling some random inexplicable jumps until they eventually crash. And, unfortunately for the audience, survive, meaning we have to spend another 47 minutes with these idiots. Anyway, cut to Kangaroo doing funny thing, ha ha ha, because this is funny animal film, remember? Chaser and Louie wander their way into a small town and step into a local bar looking to use the phone. They call the guy they were supposed to meet and inform them that they'll be delayed with the package, to which angry Australia man threatens them with death by Australian stereotyping.
Boys, I'll chop you into snags and feed you to the crocs.
Lewis comes up with a plan and leaves Chazza Boy in the bar watching this absolute bloke hammer down some bevies while he heads out to yab with this Yankee bird that's working at a local wildlife centre for some advice on how to snare the boomer there after with all the moolah. Oh, I think this film's starting to get to me. Anyway, she basically tells them to rent a plane and get a tranquilizer gun. Also, another kangaroo moment. Don't forget this kangaroo, folks, because it's definitely a movie about a talking kangaroo, even though it's yet to speak. Meanwhile, back in New York, angry Australia man calls Walken to complain that his money is delayed. Walken is unsurprised by the news and sends the bully kid to Australia in the hopes that'll fix the problem. Back down under, Lewis comes back to the bar with a trank gun and a number for a pilot they can rent. It turns out the drunk guy is the pilot, which segues us to an actually funny joke.
It's just that you were passed out an hour ago.
That's just me morning ritual, mate.
With some luck, they find the kangaroo thereafter and try to shoot him with the trank gun. Unfortunately, they shoot the pilot and end up crashing the plane. As that's happening, angry Australia man starts looking for Chazzy and Louie so he can get his money quicker. Unfortunately again, both protagonists survive that plane crash with little to no injury, so the film has to continue on. Charlie, of course, makes a remark akin to "at least it could be worse," to which Lewis explains that angry Australia man threatened to find them and kill them for failing to bring him his money. Now realising there's a ticking clock, Lewis also remembers that the wildlife girl was heading out to work on some project east of town, so they both decide to walk east with no map or real sense of direction. As they walk, they encounter some dingoes, wait through one of the quickest sandstorms ever put to film, and eventually start to see mirages. Finally, after a squabble, help arrives in the form of the wildlife girl Lewis spoke to, and because the writers have the maturity of that one weird kid you knew in year 8 that would run around the playground trying to lick you, Charlie Boy thinks it's a hallucination and does something very family unfriendly. Naturally, Wildlife Girl doesn't like being sexually assaulted, so she knocks him out. This leads us into the most memorable part of the film, the kangaroo nightmare sequence.
I said a hip hop, the hippie to the hip hop, and you don't stop the rock to the bang bang boogie. Set up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie. This is great.
What? This is the talking kangaroo part that was in the trailers to make the film appeal to children, and it could not do the opposite more than it does. Not only do we see talking and dancing kangaroos, not only do they get uncomfortably close to the camera, but the biggest freak factor is the fact that one of them has the voice of Lewis and the other has the voice of Christopher Walken. Name me one thing right now that you could show your child that is more disturbing than a kangaroo with Christopher Walken's voice threatening you. Nothing? That's what I thought. Hold on, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. With everything else that's happened so far, maybe there's more to this than scary talking kangaroos. A deeper meaning, maybe the reflection of the human soul. I gotta write this down while future me continues with the review. Anyway, Charlie wakes up from it and oh wow, it was a dream, thank fuck. Meanwhile, the angry Aussie is slowly catching up with the bully guy not far behind. That night, Chaz apologises to the wildlife lady about sexually assaulting her and she seems surprisingly cool with it. She says she can't help him find the kangaroo though and she needs to get back to business. Charlie then pulls a crafty move on the Sheila by offering her $2,000 for her help. Fuck, it happened again. Anyway, wildlife lady says sure and they set off to find the roo. The next day they all jump onto camels and head towards a river where the nearby kangaroos are likely to be. The only point this scene here serves is to explain where they're going and to set up these berries for a lame payoff later. That's it. Both could have been explained back on the camp set, but because we were on a camp set, we couldn't have any camel fart jokes. This film just goes from squeezing boobs to talking kangaroos to bloodthirsty killers to camel farting jokes just like that. Parkour! Anyway, bully guy picks up the pilot from the side of the road and he points them in the direction of Charlie and Lewis. I'll let you know now that they kick him out the car later so it saves time editing this review. Oh, and they also kick out their tour guide too. Our main trio arrive at the waterhole where they suspect the kangaroo is and make some bolos, these things to catch the kangaroo with, to the sound of Round Round by the Sugar Babes. If that doesn't date this movie, I don't know what does. They manage to sneak up on the kangaroo, but just as they're about to throw their ropey spinny thingies, Louis steps on an anthill and freaks out, scaring the kangaroo away. Then the wildlife lady is all like, well, we'll just have to try again tomorrow. Like, you're not even going to try and attempt to catch it later on, or like when it's sleeping, just oops, you missed, you gotta wait 24 hours before you can use those bolos again. Or whatever, it's just an excuse to move us swiftly onto the raunchy scene. You can't see anything that's not kosher, but I'm going to skip over it anyway. You can't be too safe on YouTube nowadays. For those interested, it's just white boy sexually assaulting a wild girl, but I guess she's into that, so it slides. Also, this is a family movie now, why did you leave this shit in? My guess is it was supposed to lead into one of the sex scenes that was cut from the original film. Well, whatever happened, someone's dummy thick ass was clapping that night, because they're all awoken by the angry Aussie and his posse who must have been alerted to their position by said claps. When he finds out the money really is on a kangaroo, he takes Wild Girl away to help him find it while his henchmen go to dispose of the Yanks. As they're being dragged across the outback, White Boy starts whining about his stepdad again until he remembers he has a plot-convenient pair of hairdressing scissors in his pocket. Lewis sets him free, they commandeer the camels, and they head back to save the Wild Girl. And just in case you forgot this was a funny animal film amidst all the sexy times, knives, guns, and adult themes, here's the kangaroo again. Ha 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 ha, he tries to eat the spicy gobstopper from earlier. What a silly animal. Anyway, Mr. Angry is about to shove a fucking knife through Wild Girl's throat. Luckily, the Yanks arrive in time and manage to save her. Just as it looks like things are wrapping up, Bully Kid arrives to smooth things over with the angry Aussie and points a gun at Charlie. Aussie is still angry because he still doesn't have his money and tensions between the American gangsters and the Aussies build until they both start fighting each other. Team Idiots see their chance to flee and take it, still deciding to go after the kangaroo instead of just hightailing it as far as they can from this situation. Bully's gangsters knock out Mr. Angry's men and chase after the idiots. The chase scene that follows is alright as chase scene goes, but if you're the type of person to question whether a camel could keep up with a kangaroo, and subsequently if a camel could outrun a jeep, then I doubt you'd like it. Team Idiot chase the kangaroo through a canyon while Team Bully pursues. After failing to realise they could have just shot at the camels, Team Bully's jeep gets flipped over, leaving Team Idiot free to catch that roo. And it seems that idiocy is spreading because both the camel and the kangaroo forget their self-preservation instincts as they run towards a cliff. Lewis manages to grab the money from the kangaroo just in time to drop it and be thrown off the edge of the cliff. Somehow he didn't pull the camel down with him and he dangles helplessly from the cliffside. This leads to a tense moment where Charlie has to rescue Lewis, or it would be tense if I actually cared about the characters in question. Of course, Lewis is saved and we get a moment of relief before Bully somehow manages to sneak up on Team Idiot. Charlie shows Bully that they got the money back when Bully informs them that the money was for their execution, and that they were sent to Australia to pay for their own assassination by the hands of the angry Aussie. And then, even more confusing, morning, somehow a police helicopter managed to sneak up on them all. Bully tries to use the American technique to get rid of it, but when that fails, he ends up using the Joestar technique instead. Whiny white boy throws a bolo at him and trips him over, allowing the police to land and arrest him. Turns out the reason the police were able to arrive in time was because the chief was undercover as the bully's tour guide before he was thrown out of their car. We then get a sappy moment of friendship between Whiny and Lewis where we learn the value of friendship, and then the kangaroo comes back letting Charlie take the jacket back. This should be where the film ends, but then the kangaroo comes back with his family because, aww, of course he has a family. And the baby then proceeds to kick Charlie back into a previous scene. Cut to years later and Charlie is married to the wildlife girl. Remember when I said those berries set up earlier had a shit payoff? Well, both Charlie and Lewis used the hip money to make some shampoo that smelled like those berries and now they're both rich. And just to make sure that you know this was all a funny talking animal film and definitely not anything else, they stitched 35 seconds of poorly dubbed talking kangaroo footage at the end of the film. So that was Kangaroo Jack. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's still bad. The plot is contrived and idiotic, barely any of the characters are likeable, and the kangaroo that sold the film does nothing in the greater picture of the story. What intrigues me the most is the fact that if you were to strip away the childish parts in the talking kangaroo, you would have a half-decent film. Nothing great or groundbreaking, but there are a few moments that have ideas and potential. It's just full of immature humour, deus ex machinas, and hastily woven in plot lines to justify plot turns. If the script had one or two more rewrites to iron it out, I'd say it could have been an interesting movie. Not a blockbuster, but it probably would have had a small cult following. Goodest Boy Award? That can go to Blue, the pilot guy, for being the only character I kind of liked.
Never should have left the pub.
And I know there's a dog in the film, and I know people will be all like, ooh, why didn't you give it to the dog? Well, the dog has fuck all screen time and does nothing to stand out or deserve it. And if you disagree with me, then fucking fight me. You won't. Would I recommend this film to anyone? Yes and no. For the first time, a film has left me torn. It is a bad film, but at the same time, there's so much dumb stuff in it you can just get drunk with mates and laugh at it. It's like there's something deeper within it. A subtext I'm not quite understanding. Wait, I made those notes earlier. Hold on. Here we go. Drowning, travel, hell, friendship. I think I have it. I think I have the real meaning behind Kangaroo Jack. It starts out in Brooklyn, with two boys drowning on the beach. They weren't saved at all, but Charlie's soul became indebted to Lewis's as he tried to save his life. For years they lived in hell, New York, trying to find happiness or a way to escape from the hands of the devil that held them there. The devil tired of tormenting these souls and gave them a chance to escape hell by going through purgatory with a key to their freedom, along with other demons chasing after them. As they travel through the heat, they are met by God, who must decide if their souls are worthy to enter heaven, in the form of a kangaroo. The kangaroo takes away their key to freedom, leading to them having to go through a series of trials and ordeals to get their freedom back. That's why they didn't die in the car or the plane crash. Along their travels, they meet another soul that is trapped in purgatory too, that can aid them in their journey. They promise to help this soul escape too, and venture on. Throughout the journey, the kangaroo torments them, trying to see if they will break and give in to let their souls be pulled back to hell. But alas, they do not give in. Eventually the demons catch up to them, and want the key to freedom for themselves. The souls manage to escape the demons, and after saving Lewis, Charlie's soul now becomes free of debt. Both now showing that they are selfless and worthy, God returns and lets them take their freedom, and so their souls are free to finally rest in peace. Or maybe it's just a botched film that had a talking kangaroo slapped into it to sell tickets. Who knows? What I do know is there was a time where the two leads could have possibly been played by Nick Cage and Danny DeVito, which makes me want to remake this film with the sole intent to cast them into it. Whew, anyway, that's enough of this movie. As always, leave a like, do the subscribe thing, and roll the outro!
It's time, Will.
No.
You know what time it is. A year ago, I made you a Suburban Spotlight, didn't I? But you said you'd make one for me as well. But you haven't. I don't see a summing up spotlight on your channel, Will, do I? And it was either that, on the contract you said it was either that or, you know, do a review of my choosing. You know what film I choose, Will? I choose the one you don't want to do.